Hi there! I'm Lianna with the Medford Arts Center, and today we are going to be designing our own memorial for Memorial Day. Now you might think of Memorial Day as a day that starts summer and having barbecues and picnics and running around and having fun. But all of this wouldn't be possible if it weren't for those who sacrificed their lives in our military. And Memorial Day is a day that we take time to reflect on all of the freedoms that we have in this country and really appreciate those who paid the ultimate price so that we could live these beautiful lives. So I figured, what better way to honor all of those who have passed in our military than to create a memorial. So today you are going to become an architect and use some materials that you find in your house to build a small scale memorial. Come with me. I will show you how. Okay, first and foremost, you are going to want something to cover your workspace so you don't end up with a messy desk like mine. And then ideally you want a hot glue gun, and if you use one of these you want a grown-up to help you because they get really hot. And you also want something to catch the glue. But if you don't have a glue gun, no need to worry. You can use tape or some good old glue stick or anything else that you might have that can stick things together, even if it's just gravity. You also want some scissors or possibly a box cutter if you have that, which again, you want a parent or a grown-up to help you with that. And if you want to add some color to your design, you can use some paint. You are going to want some water, as well as paintbrushes, and probably a paper towel or an old rag that you don't use anymore. You also want a painting palette, so you can use a lid to a container, an actual painting palette, or I use an empty eyeshadow palette. Okay, so you also might want to use some wrapping paper or construction paper, maybe a magazine or even a calendar, in order to add some color to your design without necessarily needing paint. And you also want a sketchbook or a piece of paper, as well as a pencil, in order for you to brainstorm and flesh out some of your ideas. You might also want some nature objects. If you want to include any sculptures in your memorial, you can use aluminum foil along with a figurine. I have this little mannequin, but you can use a doll or an action figure, as long as it's not your brother or sisters, in order to make a sculpture that looks like metal. In addition, you're going to want to get some recycled materials. I just went right inside my recycling bin and found an egg carton, milk carton, a juice bottle. You want to be super careful that there is no broken glass, and I would just avoid glass items at all costs. And then you can rinse out any of your recycled materials, such as milk cartons. Okay, now for phase 2. We are going to come up with a blueprint and start thinking of ideas for our memorial. One of the first things that you want to think about is, who are you dedicating the memorial to? Does it include all service men and women in all of history who died in combat, just as kind of like a general memorial? Or will the memorial be about a specific war, group, or person? Maybe there's somebody in your family who died during a war and you want to dedicate it to that person. For me personally, I was inspired by a film that I saw called Surviving with Grief. that is about a canine named Grief who served in Afghanistan alongside Corporal Alfred Brenner IV. Thankfully, Alfred survived, but unfortunately, Grief did not survive an explosion. I have decided to dedicate a memorial to Grief. Next, you want to think about the kind of environment you want to create. Is it going to be natural and have a lot of grass, or will it be more industrial, made of metal and concrete? Or maybe it'll be somewhere in between. You can choose somewhere on the spectrum between industrial and natural. The last thing you want to think about is what kind of mood are you going to set? Is it going to be very energetic and vibrant and upbeat? Or will it be more soothing and calm and peaceful and quiet? Think about how it will make people feel when they visit the memorial. Next on the list, we want to brainstorm some cool ideas. So maybe you can include a garden or possibly statues, maybe a stage to sing or act, maybe an art gallery. Maybe you want to include a water fountain or other water elements. Really try to think outside of the box. Maybe there could be a roller coaster. Brainstorming is the time to think of crazy ideas and then choose which ones you like. Since I'm dedicating this to Grief, I thought I could make my memorial a dog park. Once you're all done, you can circle all the ideas that you like the best. So after brainstorming, the next step is to sketch a little mock-up of how your design is going to look. Since I'm starting with a square pizza box, I'm going to make mine the shape of a square. You might have a rectangle or another shape. And then I'm just going to look at my objects and see what kind of things I could make out of them. I have Grief and Alfred in the middle, and I am going to make a water fountain in the middle as well, and then put some trees on the side and a little walkway. And then lastly, I'll put some things that the dogs can play on when they visit the park. Okay, on to phase 3. We're gonna start actually making this thing. So I'm starting off with a pizza box that I used to paint over before, and I'm just painting over it in black and then painting over it in green for the grass. But if you have plain cardboard, you can just leave it plain or add construction paper to add color to it. And then I'm just gonna let that dry while I make a sculpture. So in front of me, I have a reference picture of what I want to recreate for a sculpture. And I am using a little mannequin and then a little toy dog. So, like I said, you can wrap some of your dolls or action figures in foil, but you definitely want to ask permission, especially if it does not belong to you. Essentially, what I did was just wrap the whole thing in aluminum foil, but for Grief, we had to add some height to him because he's not as short as Slink. So I am just super gluing some sticks to his feet so he is a little bit taller. So I'm just adding with some glue ears on top of his head because they weren't exactly the shape I wanted them to be. There we go. Now it looks just like Grief. Before I paint my objects and glue them, I'm messing around with the arrangement to see how I like where everything looks and see what kind of things I can create. You want to do this first before you glue anything or paint anything, because I actually decided that I didn't have a lot of space and I wanted a lot less things on here than I had originally planned for. In this case, because we're just creating a model, it's okay if you have to stray from your blueprint and you find the new ideas along the way. And once you're happy with all of your objects, you can start painting them. You want to remember to protect your surface with some newspaper. This is the fun part, but also the messy part. So make sure you wear a smock and possibly some gloves. You might find that you have to use a hair dryer to speed up the drying process. So I am drying everything so that way I can add a new coat and it'll look real. And after I painted, I made a huge mess, so I just wanted to clean that up before I moved on to the last step. Everything ready to go. I have my reference image up and my dog park, all of my gluing materials, and I am ready to go. One last time, I decided to arrange everything to make sure I was really happy with the way that it looked before I glued everything down permanently forever. Just kidding. Hot glue is actually not that difficult to take off. Just in case you decide that you want your action figure again, you can take the foil off, take the hot glue off, and recover your toys. At this point, I was really happy with my design, so I decided to glue everything down. Some parts that I tried to glue wouldn't stay in place, so I had to use a little eraser and some Play-Doh to get it steady while it dried. So I'm just adding some flowers and branches to the sides to make trees. And then lastly, I'm attaching Grief and Alfred. I used a little wire to make a leash for Grief, and I'm going to attach that to Alfred's hand. I wanted to make a stone pathway, so I am just painting that in. And here I am adding a couple of ledges to one of the dog playgrounds. I added a front gate, and I wanted to add something on the front to cover the fact that this was an aluminum foil box. So I am dedicating the park to Grief and calling it Grief Memorial Park. Okay, you ready to see how it came out? Welcome to Grief Memorial Park. When you walk in, you can see all of the dog playgrounds, but most of all, you see the statue dedicated to Grief and Alfred. We have some more of our dog playground and plenty of grass and sunshine and trees. Something that all dogs would appreciate. I would just like to take a moment to thank all of the people who make Family Fun Day possible. Obviously, we have our military veterans. Thank you for your service, and all of those who have passed, we thank you. And I will also thank our sponsors, Republic Bank, Hallman Ford Enterprises. I thank you so much for making this possible. We have a great time because of all these people who support us, and I hope to see everybody soon.